So we're going to do the rear main seal on a 91 Jeep Cherokee. Now we're also going to do the oil pan gasket since we have to take it off to do the rear main seal. I'm in the middle of doing the transmission and swapping from an internal to an external slave cylinder on this AX15. So I already got the transmission out. That should help me when removing the oil pan. There's a lot of different ways. It's a pain in the butt. I've done it with an automatic twice before, and you've got to position the axle up and down with jacks and jack stands and whatnot to be able to wiggle it out to get it past the transmission. I don't know if we're gonna have the same issue. Yeah, because I'm not gonna take the, we'll see. I'm not gonna take the that little dust shield off, so we'll see how much trouble this is to wiggle free. After we get that done, I'll show you what it looks like. Now to get the oil pan off, it's a bunch of bolts around the side of it. It's a pain in the butt. You're gonna need some extensions. It helps if you've got an impact gun, some sort of electric wrench. And most of them are 7/16, I believe. Yeah, most of them are 7/16. I think there's a few that are 1/2, like around the corners here. But just go around the side, take them all off, and then we're gonna get this pan off, and I'll show you what to do from there. Okay, we had to do more stuff than I would rather. Jeep hasn't won yet, but the oil pan, I think it's gonna be different on an automatic because I've done this on an automatic before, and you can get it out with just lifting the car up and down and moving the axle around. You can get it out without removing the transmission for one, but this is a manual, and the dust plate on an automatic, it's removable. The dust plate, you can get it out of the way. Now the bell housing, I don't know, I've done it without removing it, but on this one I could not get it no matter what. I put the thing on the ground and I could not get it past this bell housing or this dust plate. Now the transmission's removed, but it still have the flywheel, the clutch, and the dust plate on. And it wasn't going, it was already removed for me, so I just took the flywheel off. It's sitting on the ground over there using an impact wrench. And I just buzzed that out real quick, and now I should be able to get the pan out pretty easily, but good luck if you're doing this without removing your transmission if it's a AX15. I'm sure you could probably wiggle it out. I don't know, I wasn't, it was easier for me to do this. So I pulled out the clutch and all that. I'm replacing the clutch anyways, even though the clutch was okay, it wasn't in too bad a shape. So now if you look back here, I've got plenty more clearance for this oil pan to get out of my way. I might have to take that bolt out, we'll see. I'm sure I would. I can't see. Okay, it's that oil. Well, I'm gonna mess around with this for a little bit. We'll see if we can get it out. All right, well, we got it out. So if you'll take a look, there's a cutout in this. Terrible design, stupid, ridiculous. Why is this even here? I have no idea. It's dumb. The pan pretty much goes like this, and then there's a shelf that sticks out and overhangs, and the oil pump gets stuck underneath there. So you've got to, here's the front of the Jeep. It was in there like this. I shoved it on its side, and you have to keep going like this, and then raise it up a little bit off the ground, and then you can kind of wiggle it around so you get the oil pump sliding out here, because you'll never get it if you're trying to pull it up straight or straight down. So that's what I did. There's a bunch of junk in the bottom of this. It appears to just be, I don't know, rocks, crud, gasket material. I don't think it's metal particles, but we will we'll look at the bottom side of our bearing cap in a second. So that's next. Okay, we're up under here. You're gonna need to get the camera angle. It's these two bolts. Here's the last bearing cap. These need to come out. I don't know what they are, probably 18, 19 millimeter. I'm sure it'll work. We're gonna take that out. Be very careful with it. Don't drop it. You can break it or crack it. Be careful not to touch the bearing. The underside, I'll show you that. And then I'll show you how to get the rear main seal out. Yeah, pretty much. Just a quick pro tip here. A lot of these bolts are the same size, but not all of them, and some of them have these little studs coming off of them to hold stuff. So take your gasket, put it on top of the box for the gasket, and trace it out, and then poke a hole everywhere you need to put a bolt. And this is all your bolts coming off that oil pan. Now, also another tip, I drained my oil probably 3 days, 4 days before I did this, and just let it sit with the drain plug out to let all the oil come out. That way I'm not having oil dripping down on my face when I'm doing the bottom of this oil pan the whole time. So if you can, drain it out a couple days before you go ahead and pull the pan. Well, some good news and bad news. We'll talk about the bad news second. The good news, that's the rear main seal sticking out. It will be flush with the bottom of your engine. I went to the other side with this punch, and I just punched out the bearing, or the, not the bearing, the rear main seal, the top half of it, and it's gonna slide out. It's half moon shaped. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab it with some needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to work it the rest of the way out. Be careful, don't scratch any of your bearing. Now I'm gonna pull that all the way out. Here's the other side of it. It's this thing. So this is your bearing cap. This is typically shoved in here, and you just basically lift up from this one side and start working the gasket out. And then you're gonna get it to this. Comes right out. It's pretty cooked. Yeah, that's no good. So the bad news, the terrible news, is this engine is in kind of rough shape. See that big groove, that gash in the center of the bearing cap? That is not good. And when I pulled the pan earlier, I don't know if we got it on camera, but there was a bunch of chunky stuff in the bottom of the pan. Looked like dirt, rocks, whatever. Didn't really look like metal material, but definitely not the best care on this engine. I just changed the oil before I did this, but now I'm thinking twice about reusing it. I saved it in a clean bucket, but I think I'm gonna do all new oil anyways. Another 30 bucks, 20 bucks, actually, whatever, not a big deal. I'm gonna replace the oil again, use some thick oil too. But these gaps, that is not a good sign. You don't want to see that in your bearing caps or on your bearings. The bearing, it's got some grooves in it. It's not, there's no deep gashes, just looks like a little bit of marring. So right now I am going to, I already pulled this one out. I'm gonna get the rear main seal. I'm gonna pull this old one out all the way, and then I'm gonna shove the new one up in there. And we are going to put the other side in that bearing cap. We're gonna put it back up in there, make sure we're gonna stick some RTV too on some sides. Then we'll torque it down to 80 foot-pounds, so bear with me. Okay. So, we're gonna do the top side or the bottom side of the rear main seal. It only goes in one way. See these little grooves? You can't put it in backwards, otherwise it won't seat. So it should be okay. I'm just gonna do the tops. So I'm gonna do a little tiny bit of gasket maker up top here and up top here, and then I'll actually do it on the top side of this surface as well. Very, very thin film I'm going for here. I'm just doing the underside of this, probably the most prone areas to leak. And now we're just gonna put this in here. So then I'm gonna clean off this bearing cap surface, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of RTV on the top side of this mating surface, and I'll smooth it over into a film again, just like I did before. Then we will set it back up in the engine, and we'll torque it down to 80 foot-pounds. And that's gonna be it. Try to keep everything as clean as possible. Try not to do it with super dirty hands, and try not to use a super dirty punch. So right once you've got it just about flush, that'll do it. Just poking out the other side. So now we're gonna set, now what we're gonna do is clean this off a bit, the mating surfaces, and then we will put the rear main seal in the other side.